What is going on, everybody? I'm back with a quick video. This is going to be your Week 15 Seattle Seahawks rooting guide. So if you're not sure who to root for, what to root for this week, I'm going to give you at least my opinion, and you guys can go from there and where I think you should be rooting. There's really two areas for the Seahawks we can look at. Number one is the playoffs. This team is still alive for the playoffs. They are currently 7-7. They're behind two teams that are 7-5-1. So they're very much in the race. So let's look at it from that aspect first. First thing I want to say is do not let anybody shame you into rooting for this team to still get into the playoffs. There's a lot of people on Twitter and whatnot saying, why would you even care about the playoffs now, yada, yada, yada. And while I do think right now the draft is the main focus for this team, you can still root for them to get in the playoffs. I am still rooting for them to get in the playoffs because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to get into the dance. And if you get in the dance, you do have a chance to win it all. I don't think this team is winning the Super Bowl by any means or even a playoff game if they get in. But the 2008 Cardinals got in, made it to the Super Bowl. The Giants had runs at 9-7. So it's not the most absurd thing ever that this team could get in and do something. So let's start with that. Your first game is Detroit and the Jets this morning. You should be rooting for the Jets. The nice thing with the Lions is Seattle does have the tiebreaker against Detroit. They did beat them. So the Lions are essentially, even if they win today, they're still behind Seattle technically. They'd be 7-7. If the Jets can beat them, that would drop the Lions to 6-8 and essentially 2 games back of Seattle with 3 to play and almost end their chances. So a Jets win would kind of eliminate the Lions from sneaking in there at least past Seattle. So that's number one. You want to root for the Jets. Number two is the Commanders-Giants game tonight in D.C. And this one would just depend on who you think has the tougher schedule and down the stretch. Now, for me personally, I think the Commanders are a little bit better football team than the Giants. And they're more likely to maybe win some games. But both teams have very tough schedules. Commanders still play the Niners, the Browns, which look a little rejuvenated with Watson, and their defense is playing well. And I think they play Dallas as well. So they've got a tough 3 games after this. The Giants play the Vikings, Colts, and Eagles. Now that seems tough, but the Vikings are kind of up and down. The Colts are a bit of a mess. That could be a win. And then the Eagles could be resting people the final week of the season. So I look at this as whoever loses this game, the winner I think is in. The winner of Giants Commanders is going to be in the playoffs, in my opinion. I think it'll be enough to put them over the top. And if you watch my picks, I picked the Commanders. So let's go with that. Let's say the Commanders win. The Giants would then be 7-6-1 and a half game above the Seahawks. Or if the Giants win, Commanders would be in the same boat. I do think it's possible that one of those teams, whoever loses this game, only finishes with like 8 wins on the season. So if Seattle can get to 9, they would be in good shape. So the nice thing about that game is there's no downside unless it's a tie. You don't want another tie. That would be bad news. Now, I know some of you might be saying, well, Seattle has the tiebreaker over the Giants for beating them, so that should help. But right now, unfortunately, because the Giants tied Washington, it would have been great if they lost that game. That would have been a huge loss because that would have a chance to put the Giants at 7-7. Seattle actually literally back in the playoffs. That tiebreaker doesn't mean anything right now. Now, it means something in the fact that Seattle won the game, and that gave the Giants a loss and the Seahawks a win. But just in terms of the tiebreaker, it has no meaning. Unless Seattle ties somebody, I guess if the Giants had another tie, then it would factor in. I don't know how that would even work with 2 ties, but let's just hope they don't. But yeah, unfortunately, due to that tie, the tiebreakers sort of go away, as that tie is kind of a half game that's just sitting there. So that doesn't really matter. So whoever loses that game tonight is the team you just want to see losing the rest of the way. And even the winner, you still want the winner to lose too. So that's about it for the playoff picture. I mean, Green Bay losing would be okay too, but if you're going that far down with like Green Bay and some of these other teams, then at that point you're just not getting in anyway. So from that playoff perspective, that's that. Now, what is probably the most important thing for this team long term, that's kind of the short-term goals. Long term, there's one game and one game only, and that is you want the Arizona Cardinals with Colt McCoy to beat the Brett Rippon-led Denver Broncos this afternoon. That is the most important game today for the Seahawks. Now, like I said, I don't think you should be shamed into rooting for them to make the playoffs. You want both. I want Seattle to make the playoffs and get that top pick. It's not mutually exclusive, or it is. I don't know what one of those, but you can have both of those. But I do think long term that draft pick is more important. You've seen me talk about on Twitter, talk about here, the chance to get Jalen Carter, and maybe it won't be Jalen Carter, I don't know, but that'd be my assumption, with Bryce Young likely going to Houston, is a true difference maker. I firmly believe Jalen Carter is a talented enough guy that you could take a defense that ranks 30th, and he could make him rank 17th or 18th in the league. And imagine this defense if they were average this year. They probably beat the Raiders. They probably beat the Panthers. That alone, 9-5, has you still in the hunt for the division and knock on the door of the playoff spot. And that's just one pick. That's one guy, and I firmly believe that. Look at the Niners with Nick Bosa, what a difference maker can do. Now, they have other pieces too, but Seattle does as well. Like, all of a sudden, you put Jalen Carter on that D-line, and Nwosu is getting 13 sacks. Darrell Taylor comes alive a little bit. It allows Poona Ford to be more of a number 2 guy, and he plays better. Now, Al Woods, if you bring him back, someone like that, is truly just your run stuffer D tackle. So he's in there occasionally as well, and everything opens up for you. And that's not to mention the other first-round picks this team has. The Seahawks still have their own first-round pick. They have Denver's second-round pick as well, which is essentially going to be in the top 35 also, and their own second-round pick. Plus, you have the option of maybe trading down from your pick and getting like 26, 27, 28. You know, you could get a plethora of picks there in between 25 and 40. So, essentially there'd be a lot of ways to add talent. So, and like I said, it might sound crazy, but it's not that this defense could turn around. And a building block like Jalen Carter. Now, Jalen Carter could bust. Any player is possible to bust. But just looking at the pedigree that he has and the position, there's also a chance that, you could be looking at your Aaron Donald, your Nick Bosa. I know Bosa plays a different position, but just in terms of impact. So, yeah, that does make a difference on that defense. And all of a sudden, you're opening up lanes, and Jordan Brooks looks better. Cody Barton looks better. Whoever it may be playing linebacker all of a sudden looks a lot better, too, because there's more gaps being opened by the defensive line. So, yeah, very big that you want Arizona to beat Denver to help secure that number 2 pick. Denver, in my mind, has 2 winnable games left. This Sunday against Arizona, next Christmas Day against the Rams. Those are probably their most winnable games. And winning them, which is possible, could bring Denver that pick from like 2 to 6 or 7. So that changes a lot there. So, rooting for Denver to lose there. And then Denver's other games are the Chargers and the Chiefs. I think games that you'd expect them to lose. But you never know, that last week of the season, teams are sitting people, so it's always hard to judge what Week 18 is going to look like right now. Holy cow. So that's it. That's your Seahawks rooting guide for what week is this? Week 15? It's all weird now with 17 games. Week 15 of the NFL season. Please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you to everybody that has subbed. Well over 200 now, so I truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate that. If you like the content, sub up. If you don't, that's fine too. Totally up to you. And I will see you guys later. Go Hawks. Peace.